Hello, I'm Rachel Patterson. I was just about to renew my witch bottles when I thought I would show you what I do with them. I have two in my house most of the time, or all of the time actually. One of them in the kitchen, in the corner of the kitchen, the other one in the very corner of the living room. Just old jam jars, nothing fancy, although I think this one came from Greece, but very pretty. So just empty jam jars. I do use the same jars each time. I tip the contents in the bin when I've finished with them, and then I cleanse the jar. You can cleanse the jar with incense, with good old water, visualization, entirely up to you. I usually just hold my hand over it, take it off, hold my hand over it and cleanse it with visualization, white light, green light, blue light, whatever you want to do. I quite often hold the jar upside down over the smoke of incense if I feel it needs it to. On the lid of each one I've also got a little pentagram drawn. So I'll show you what I do with them. These are purely for the reason of soaking up any negative energy. You know, it happens in a house. So to soak up negative energy, stop any arguments, disagreements, and to generally bring peace and happiness to the house. So the base, I think, of any witch jar, of my witch jars anyway, these aren't pretty, these are practical, these are real kitchen witch ones. There's no fancy ingredients that make it all look very witchy, and you can do that if you want to. Vinegar works very well, beetroot juice looks fantastic, looks like blood in there. These are purely practical. They're not on show, I have them tucked away. So the base is ingredients that absorb. Don't throw out any rice or oats or flour, anything, lentils, anything that absorbs when they're out of date. Don't throw them out, keep them purely for witches' jars or magical use. The idea is that they soak up the negative energy. So oats or rice soak up water or milk, so they soak up negative energy. So I'll just do one at the moment. So I've got a packet of gram flour that's now everywhere. That's just gone out of date. So I won't use it for cooking, but I will use it in the jar. So I'm going to put a layer on the bottom. This is going to go everywhere, isn't it? So I usually do this in the kitchen. So you need a layer of that on the bottom. Charge the ingredients as you go, or you can charge them all at the end. Both, it's entirely up to you. Hold your hand over the top. Visualise the intent that you want, or state the intent out loud. You can say a little chant if you want to. I charge this gram flour with soaking up negative energy. And then there are several things that I normally put in. 3 nails. Nails that you bang in with a hammer, not fingernails. You could put fingernails in if you want to. That does make a personal connection. Original witch bottles would have had all sorts of horrible things in. Human hair, fingernails, toenails, urine, all sorts of things like that, because original witch bottles, they believe, were supposed to protect against witches. Not sure we want to be doing that, but it's up to you. If you want to bring a personal element into it, you could put hair from everyone in your household or fingernail clippings. If you really feel inclined to pee in it, please do. I'm not going to. Trust your intuition, go with what works for you. So 3 nails. I don't know why 3, it feels right to me. This is kitchen witchery. This is trusting your intuition and going with it. Nails, I guess it's based on the idea that fairies don't like iron. These aren't iron, but they're metal. So 3 nails for protection. Protection because they've got pointy ends as well. It's all association. Then I put a pebble from my garden. I mean, it's tiny, doesn't have to be anything huge. The jar doesn't have to be this big either. This is just an old pasta sauce jar, I think. You can use a little jam jar. Pebble from the garden. This for me ties in the personal element, so it's protection for my house and home. which includes the garden, and it's also quite earthing. So he goes in there, so that's for grounding. A leaf from the garden as well. There's lots of fallen leaves in the garden at the moment. Again, I think this ties in with the personal connection, and it also gives an extra boost of earth energy. The dog is whinging at me to put his blanket on him. If you're not careful, you'll go in the jar. Then I have, I'm going to grab a pair of scissors, a piece of string. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be ribbon, it could be coloured cord, it could be twine. This is garden twine, and I'm going to put 3 knots in it. 1 knot to dispel negative energy, 2 knots for protection, and a 3rd knot for peace. And that's going in there too. Now I'm going to put another layer of absorbing items. I've got a little tiny bit of basmati and wild rice here that is not enough to be any good to man or beast, so that's going in there, because again that soaks up. So we'll tip that in there. Rice is also good for prosperity, so it's got a kind of dual purpose there. So charge it with the intent of soaking up negative energy and bringing prosperity and abundance to the household. What have we got next? Well, I like to add a few herbs and spices. It changes each time I make the jar, depending on what I feel is needed. So today I literally just standing in front of the stand in front of the herb cupboard and see what literally jumps out at me. So I've got some rose petals. These are for love, for happiness, and for a contented household. So I've stated the intent as I put them in there. I've got some dried beans here, butter beans, these ones. Any type of dried beans are really good for, again, soaking up because they're dried, so they need liquid or energy to rehydrate them. So I'm going to put 3. I like 3. 3 works for me. It's one of the good numbers. 3 times 3. So 3 beans for prosperity, abundance, and wealth. Most of my things like this, the spices and the beans, come from Asian supermarkets because you can buy big bulk stuff for very little money. Other things, like the rose petals, come from my garden. So I'm going to put some sage in now. This was from my garden, and it has been blitzed up this in a coffee grinder. So sage is brilliant for soaking up negativity, dispelling negativity, clearing away damaging energy. So I'm stating the intent again as I do it. Now we get quite a nice level in there now. I've also got some out-of-date lentils, so I'm going to put those in there as well to soak up negative energy. And lentils as well, I think, are always quite grounding and earthing energy. And because they're so tiny and there's so many of them, I think they're very good for abundance as well. And abundance comes in all kinds. It's not just abundance money-wise. Abundance and wealth as well could be in all things. Compassion, love, friendship, all sorts of things. So it doesn't just have to count for money. So there we go, there's a layer of lentils. So that is to soak up negative energy from the home and to provide abundance in all things. What have I got now? I've got some lavender. Lavender I like to use because it's really good for peace. These have actually come from my garden, which is why they're all a bit stringy. And Eric is singing again. Eric's the dog, by the way. So lavender for peace and happiness. smells lovely as I'm putting it in here. So peace and happiness for the hearth and home. Peace and happiness for the house as a whole. Now I'm going to put a little bit of sugar, because sugar makes life sweet. So sweetness of sugar to make life sweet. I know it's kind of a weird mix, but you do have to trust your intuition and where it takes you. I'm going to put another layer of the flour now to absorb. And I'm going to be wearing this flour for the rest of today, I think. That's good. Use whatever you've got in your cupboard. Don't go out and buy loads of expensive ingredients. Use whatever you've got in your cupboard. That's kitchen witchery. It shouldn't cost loads of money. And my last ingredient is cinnamon. These are great big outer bark cinnamon sticks from the Asian supermarket. Cinnamon I like to use because it brings happiness and success and a bit of fiery passion, the good stuff. So that's the cinnamon, and I'm going to top it off with some more lentils, just to fill it up. You want to leave I like to leave a little bit of space, just so there's a bit of movement for the energy. So I'm just going to top it off with the lentils. I've got quite a mud pie of things all over the table here now. So that's the lentils for absorbing negative energy, bringing protection, bringing grounding, and abundance of all kinds. So that it really is that simple, and it uses ingredients that you've already got in your kitchen and in the cupboards. Wrong lid. Helps to have. I've got 400 lids here now. There we go. So you can say a final chant. I'll just see if you can see it there. Just it doesn't have to be pretty. It's practical rather than pretty. A bit like me this morning without my makeup, but don't look at me, look at the jar. So I'm going to charge it a final time. Witch's jar for my home, for my hearth, for my family. Bring protection, dispel negative energy, and abundance, love, and wealth of all kinds. Make it so. And it's done. And I'll just chuck this one in, not literally chuck it, because that would be quite reckless. Pop it in the corner of the living room, under the sofa, so no one sees it. That's why I say it doesn't have to be pretty. If you want to make it pretty, you can use ingredients that are different colours. You can use, say, beetroot juice if you want to give it a kind of funky witchy look. You can seal the top of the jar with candle wax that drip down. You know, if you can't hide it or don't want to hide it, then you can pretty it up. But for me, it's a practical item, and I don't want to be doing all that faffing. So, done. And that one's going to go in the living room. The other one will go in the corner of the kitchen, because I spend an awful lot of time in the kitchen. And there it is done. I renew them. There's Eric. Hello. I renew them every so often, and I renew them when I feel that they need it. There we are. Happy now? You'll know. You'll get a feeling that the jar needs renewing. Keep them out of the way of animals, cats and dogs. Although they are sealed, you don't want them to knock them over. And that's it. And then when you feel it needs it again, empty them out, or even throw the whole jar away and start afresh. It's entirely up to you. And it's all done. So there you go. I'd love to see your witch jars, witch bottles. Share what you put in them and how you made them. On Facebook would be fab. So have fun with it.